My name's Jill Rowe, and in this episode of the Different Podcast, I talk with Steve Chalke about the importance of waging peace and not war. For that to happen, we all need to see the vital importance of really listening to others. We simply have to listen. And we recognise that in truth, we only win when we all win. We can learn to not let anger get hold of and grip us. And as the brilliant Desmond Tutu said, if we want peace, we have to talk to our enemies, not just our friends. In fact, we are invited to love our enemies. This episode feels so important for right now. We hope that you will join us in waging peace. Steve!
Jill, what a hot evening.
Oh my goodness me.
Here we are, in the shade and the shelter.
I know, with our little cans of, what is it?
Well, it's
sparkling water infused with cucumber, mint and lime. Check us out.
Yeah, exactly. I've drunk all mine.
Have you drunk it all? Yeah. I've got another one.
It's so hot.
I know.
Yeah.
What a
hot
sweaty day.
I've been out there all day in the burning sunshine.
Yeah.
Trying to sort out the clearance of bushes so that we can start a forest school. But it turns out in order to start a forest school, you don't need just a forest. You need the forest cleared. And it was a very bad choice of day to start.
I was going to say, today is not the day I would have been doing that. So.
But it will be a good project when we do it.
It's good to see you. So the other week, a friend of mine posted on, I think it was on her Instagram, she posted an image of Calvin and Hobbes, the cartoon character, brilliant cartoon series, Calvin and Hobbes. And there was just this banner, you know, one of those speech bubble things saying, why do we always play war and not peace? Because it's true, isn't it? Like, you know, even when I was growing up, he was like, oh, let's pretend we're, you know, and we always lean towards war or...
Yeah, and not peace.
Not peace.
Well, it's like that with films, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, you turn on Netflix or anything. Films are either about war and killing and murder or sex. And sometimes both, you know.
Yeah.
And but that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. There is the rare film that's about something more meaningful, you know. But if it's science fiction, it's like killing one another, a vast armies.
Someone's got to win.
There's always a winner and a loser.
Yeah.
And it runs through.
And it feels like, probably just because this is the moment where we are alive, we are really struggling. So we are good at waging war. We are not good at waging peace, it feels like. And, you know, we were just chatting earlier about, you know, Frankie Goes to Hollywood and when two tribes go to war and, you know, a point is all that they can score. Like the whole thing about war and it just feels so,
and so destabilising for young people, for children.
Yeah.
So scary for them to watch all this on the news.
Yeah.
And it's no good saying that, you know, the children don't watch and don't see, because children do watch and they do see and they do hear the conversations. And so many young people are traumatised, deeply traumatised by this. They're really fearful. They're fearful for the lives of their parents and their own lives. So we are in, as you say, a really dark place, aren't we?
How have we got to this point? I mean, I know as well there's also incredible stuff happening that is good news.
Yeah.
But it is dominated, isn't it?
There's endless stories of good news, like the development of a forest school for Oasis and for the kids that it will serve. Yeah. That's really good news. And a farm, actually. Yeah. That's what I've been doing today. So there's brilliant stories, but the news cycle gets dominated by these depressive stories. In fact, I was talking to somebody who is a presenter of the news on the BBC, and I simply said to them just last week, and I simply said to them, you know, I listen to the BBC News on the radio in the morning at 6 o'clock Radio 4 actually, and by 7 minutes past 6, you just want to
turn it off.
Because they run all the headlines until 7 minutes past 6, and because I listen to it every day, except when I have to get out and about earlier, and then after the headlines, they do the newspapers. The headlines. It's like, it's
Enough.
Unmitigated disaster.
Yeah.
And then if you're a real listener to this stuff, then they do the business section, which is all about how the business world is crumbling apart and everybody's falling into poverty. You have to get through to 6:30 before you get some sport.
So how have we got here?
I think that we get here, and I think the phraseology that you used, Jill, genuinely, I think it's good phraseology. We need to wage peace.
Yeah.
That itself is a warrior spirit. It's something we've got to fight for.
Yes.
We have to fight for peace. Yeah. And that's a difficult thing to do because it takes the seeing of another person. It takes an understanding their story. It takes a letting go of our own ego. And these things played out globally are the same issues that we have to play out locally and personally, aren't they?
Yeah.
And I remember, not many people remember this only because I'm
You're saying you're old?
I am very old. Michael Parkinson. Who's heard of Michael Parkinson? Lots of people, I guess.
I feel like I want to sing the theme tune, but I won't.
But he used to do that chat show, and you still see him because he did so many famous interviews. Yeah. But he did a series of interviews with a guy called Peter Ustinov. And Peter Ustinov was a very famous actor.
Indeed.
Yeah, and won some Academy Awards, British actor, etc., was in loads of things, wasn't he? But he died. I looked up recently, 20 years ago. So basically,
the whole generation never heard of him.
Several generations have never heard of him. But trust me, look him up. He makes some great films. And Peter Ustinov had kind of Russian blood and German blood, and his father worked for the German government between the First and Second World Wars. Yeah. And then his father witnessed the slow rise of the Third Reich, and he got his family out of Germany because he knew it was going bad, and they came to Britain. So Peter Ustinov grew up as a boy. He came to Britain, and he grew up here. And he's really worth. People should Google Ustinov, and you'll find out the fascinating interviews with him. Yeah. Just his genius mind and his understanding. When his father came here, he became an operative for MI5, advising them about how to avoid a Second World War. Oh. And one of the points that Ustinov made so clearly and so intelligently was that the Second World War is really only the First World War, Part 2, because though there was the defeat of the German Empire in 1918, and they were beaten into submission, and there was a settlement, a treaty that was worked out by the British and the French, with the Germans present but not playing a part in Versailles. It happened. There was no justice in it. Yeah. The winners took everything, as ABBA would say, and the loser had nothing. And the humiliation of that, even some of the diplomats at the table, when that treaty was worked out, France was involved too, when the treaty was worked out, players at the table, actually in the room for Britain and America, said, this will lead to another war.
Wow.
And sure enough, it did. And Peter Ustinov said his father used to say, if it wasn't Hitler, it would have been someone else, because of the anger and the resentment that was there, because there was no just settlement. No one listened to anyone. The winner took it all. And I think, for my part, I would say, you look at the situations we're involved in around the world. You look at the situation in the Middle East. Yeah. Unless there's justice, there can never be peace. And all there can be is submission for a generation, but anger will arise again.
I was going to say, because actually that anger just settles in that generation. It's going to be passed on, isn't it? That doesn't dissipate.
And so that means listening to one another. You know, the other week I went and did, I was invited to speak at this huge event, which was a joy for me. So I was a speaker, and I met Chris Packham, who was speaker after me. He's a fascinating character. I spoke about neurodiversity, and then he was neurodiverse. He's
amazing.
Absolutely brilliant. But there was another speaker, and then her name was Nikki Perfect, which is an extraordinary name, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's very hard to live up to. But Nikki has spent her life, I mean, you should check her out. I think she's written a book. She spent her life, she was in the police, and she became a negotiator with international terrorists.
Wow. And
she talked about the fact that we think that communication is a soft skill. The art of holding a conversation, beginning a conversation, having a conversation is a soft skill. It's not like maths and grammar and all of those really hard skills that you need to succeed. And her point was, well, we all know they're soft, really. Yeah. And actually in life, you can succeed without them.
Those things. Yeah.
But you can't succeed without the ability to communicate, which she said is mostly about listening. And she said she couldn't give details to this huge audience, but she'd been in many situations where the lives of hostages depended on her building a relationship with a hostage taker, which she'd done first for the Met Police and then internationally. She'd negotiated with ISIS, for instance. Amazing. And she said, the only way to do it is to listen. You have to listen, and you've got to understand what's motivating the other side, the other in the room. And if you will not listen, you will fail.
Yeah. So this whole thing, which so much of this, like war and conflict and everything, is based around this notion that you can win, but actually it's impossible.
You only win them when the other guy wins as well. Yeah, it's like bartering in a market, isn't it? You drive the guy down into the floor and you don't win at all, and you don't get what you want. So that's how it works. It works out like that in any relationship. I've been married 45 years. I'm kind of that. You have to give up trying to turn your partner into another version of you. Yeah. And you have to listen really hard. I think it's the only thing that saves a marriage. And well, you can save a marriage, in its shell, can't you? But a relationship to have depth and love in it, in the end, is about listening to the other and not demanding your thing all the time. I think, and I know you know lots about this, Nelson Mandela is such an extraordinary example. Have you ever been to Robben Island? Where it's just extraordinary. Yeah. You know how many years? I mean, he was in prison for 27 years, but he spent about 19 of them, as best I can remember, on that island, in that tiny cell that you can walk into, and that quarry where they had to mine it.
Blew me away.
And he never let anger get a hold of him. Instead, he emerged as a peacemaker with the very people that had taken away a quarter of his life or more.
Yeah. So you said earlier, again, we talked about this, what we see on the geopolitical, the global scale, is ultimately a reflection of our ability or inability to be people of peace in the ordinary, everyday relationships that we have and in our communities where we don't listen and we want to win, we want to dominate.
Yeah. Well, Mandela's mate, Desmond Tutu, that very famous quote, if you want peace, don't talk to your friends, instead talk to your enemies. Yeah. You've got to talk to people who are other than you, who are different to you, who see it differently. Yeah. And I'm not saying I'm any great shakes at it, but I've learned that through building Oasis across the years at a personal level and an organisational level as well. Yeah. You've got to talk with people. I'll tell you a story. So, it's absolutely true. Just this morning, Oasis runs a lot of schools. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Harris, big academy provider, runs a lot of schools. You hear competition. We're better than them, or they're, and then they say, The last time the boss of Harris Academies talked to me was this morning. Yeah. He texted me, and I texted him back because he's my friend. Yeah. No, absolutely. So there's not a competition in it. Exactly. We can learn from one another, and we need to keep learning from. Yeah. And that Harris runs schools differently to us, and we run schools differently to them. But my conversation this morning, is about what we have in common and what we're fighting for together. Yeah. And what we're fighting for is young people. Yeah, absolutely. If we keep standing up to announce what makes us different, rather than what we share in common, you have to find the common ground, don't you? Richard Rowe talks about having a dualistic mind. What he says, he's a great thinker anyway, isn't he? And the phraseology he uses, I think, is complicated here, but when he gets down to his point, he says a dualistic mind is essentially binary. And you think, if it's dualistic, why is it binary and all that kind of stuff? Well, it's either or. Yeah, exactly. But and that's the either or thing that he comes to. And so that's it. Someone's either good or bad. Yeah. They're either pretty or they're ugly. Yeah. They're either smart or they're stupid. Yeah. They're either young or they're old. Extremes. Yeah. Yeah. And we go to extremes all the time, when in actual fact, life is a continuum, isn't it? And Absolutely. I'm not half as good as my best moments, but I hope I'm not as bad as my worst moments. Mm. And I understand that of myself, and I need to see that in others. They have bad days. They word things badly. They make snap decisions that they wished they'd not made. So none of us are as bad as our worst decisions, even though our worst decisions can be terrible. Yeah. We're not either or, we're both and. Exactly. Yeah. There's that story I know I've told before, but I tell it from a different angle. It was written by Ernest Hemingway, that great story writer. And it's a story called The Capital of the World, but it's actually, that's a confusing title actually again, because it's actually about a father and son who fall out. The son can't live up to what his father wants, and the son leaves home, a bit like a prodigal son, leaves home, is thrown out of home, and he says, I can't stand this anymore, and he heads off. And the years go by, and the father was so angry with the son who wanted him out. He said, leave now. I don't want you living around here. The father slowly comes to his senses, and he knows that his son's gone to live in Madrid. So he travels to Madrid in this story, and he places an advert in the paper. And the advert just says, his little advert, it says Paco, the name of his son, all is forgiven. Meet me Tuesday noon at the Hotel Montana. He goes to the hotel to meet his son. And the story is about reconciliation, because what happens is he turns the corner and he looks at the Hotel Montana, and the story ends with Hemingway saying, and there are 800 young men, all called Paco, all waiting to be reconciled with their father. And it's the story of reconciliation, except I always think it's not really. No. It's the story of the reconciliation of one Paco out of 800, but 799 Pacos who there is no reconciliation with their parent for. And that's because the father in 799 cases can't climb down. Yeah. We have to climb down, we have to listen. Yeah. So Jesus said, blessed are the peacemakers, for theirs is the kingdom of God. I think built into what Jesus said, but then everything that you read as you explore the Gospels, and is this idea of sacred resistance. Like, it is easy to fall for waging war.
It is easy to go down I got to win this argument. It's easy to be the stubborn one who says, well, I'm not budging. But what sacred resistance is that grace and curiosity and listening and empathy, isn't it? In the face of that.
Yeah, absolutely, Jill. I think that you've hit on a golden thread there about humanity, and it plays right into the heart of Christian faith, and the distortion of Christian faith as well. So the thing about Jesus and his death on the cross is it's all often presented as Jesus died on the cross because you're a sinner.
God had to wage war.
Yeah. And Jesus took the blows that God inflicted on him so that God could forgive you. And I think that is quite grotesque understanding, but I think it misses the power of what was happening altogether. I see Jesus' death on the cross as simply the outworking of what you've just been talking about. Jesus taught, love your neighbour, and then added, that includes everyone, love your enemy.
Yeah.
He said, go the extra mile.
Yeah.
Turn the other cheek. Give.
Yeah.
Empty yourself.
Yeah.
And we all know that teaching.
Yeah.
But the thing is, Jesus actually lived that way out.
Yeah.
And Jesus was, in the end, of course, crucified, not because of your sins or my sins, although my life's pretty flawed. He was crucified because of the sins of those around him, the cowardice of his disciples, the fickleness of the Jewish leaders, the power grabbing, of the Roman authorities and the Jewish religious leaders, the two-facedness of the crowd who chanted and cheered for him when he rode into Jerusalem, Hosanna, but then in the end turned on him and cried out, crucify him, and wanted a murderer to be released in his place. Jesus was crucified because people turned their backs on him, but he said, take the blow, go the extra mile, give yourself, lay down your life. And that takes him all the way to death on a cross. Yeah. And the other side of it, resurrection, which means, for me, this is, for me personally, it means, Steve, you can walk this way. Yeah. You can trust me. I've been this way before. I've taken the blow and not returned it. You don't have to be the winner in every situation. You can take it on board and you can come through this. It works. And so for me, every day, that understanding of what was going on gives me an ethic to live by. Yeah. I can afford not to have to get my own back and return the blow and land a heavier blow and get my word in and win this debate and this argument. I can afford not to put it all out there. I can afford to just carry on and serve.
Yeah. Sacred resistance. There's another quote from Senator John Lewis. Darkness cannot overcome darkness. Only light can do that. Violence can never overcome violence. Only peace can do that. Hate can never overcome hate. Only love can do that. Take a long, hard look down the road you will have to travel once you have made a commitment to work for change. And it's just that, like you say, Steve, you suddenly realise what's happening big scale is everything that we're about in that everyday moment. And only love, only brokering peace can shift it.
That's so true. And the thing about John Lewis, who died just a few years ago now, is his story, for people who don't know it, is extraordinary. He was a young student in the early days of the civil rights movement in America. And he took the blows and didn't return them. In fact, as a young student, he was one of the leaders of the march over the Selma Bridge. Martin Luther King wasn't there at all. Yeah. There were 3 marches over the Selma Bridge. And in the second one, the first one failed, the second one failed. And in the second march over the Selma Bridge, John Lewis was clubbed down by some white police officers and his skull was cracked open. Yeah. He'd written to Martin Luther King several times and said, join us in our non-violent resistance and search for recognition and equality. What eventually happened was, hearing that he'd had his skull cracked and was laying in hospital, Martin Luther King visited John Lewis, the young John Lewis, and then said, because Lewis had invited him on the 2 previous attempted crossings of the bridge, he said, I'll come with you this time. Wow. And on the 3rd crossing of the bridge, Martin Luther King was there and he led it. So when John Lewis tells us that darkness can't overcome darkness, only light can do that, violence can never overcome violence, only peace can do that, hatred can never overcome hate, only love can do that. He's talking about, he says, this isn't some fancy
it's not
rhetoric.
Just a nice quote.
No, he's lived it. He's known it. I took the blow. I didn't return it. I turned the other cheek. I kept going. I took the blow. I was laying in a hospital with my skull cracked open. Yeah. And I have discovered that the way of peace is the way forward, the way of listening, the way of keeping on moving forward without being violent makes a difference. And as you said, when you quoted him, you said that was Senator John Lewis. Yeah. John Lewis ended up in the Senate, the very place that black people had been locked out of through walking the way of peace and taking the blow, which is why, for me, Jesus lived out his ethic. Yeah. And he calls me to do it too.
Yeah. Blessed are the peacemakers, for theirs is the kingdom of God. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Jill.